Hi, I'm Dr. Neil Payne.
And I'm Kirk Lyons, and this is All Things Confederate.
Well, Kirk, what's going on in the SLRC today?
Well, I was thinking we might want to start our talk today about this past Sunday, the Museum of the Confederacy opening in Appomattox went off with somewhat of a hitch.
Sounds like our friends in the Virginia Flaggers were out there in force.
Yes, the Susan Hathaway reports that they had about 89 to 90 flaggers.
Wow.
Standing across the street. Waite Rawls had predicted that he would have hundreds, if not thousands, there for his opening, and there was some 200 people or so for the opening of the Museum of the Confederacy. But you might remember, if you watched our last broadcast, that we said that there was a surprise that we were aware of, and that surprise was unveiled. It was a plane flyover with a banner, and Waite Rawls had made a big deal about the theme of the museum at Appomattox would be reunification. And so apparently the SCV...
And celebrating that theme?
That's right. Yeah. Sponsored a banner with a large Confederate flag, and it said reunification by bayonet, so, which I think is the proper context of reunification.
And if you're going to have a museum of the Confederacy, it seems like that they ought to understand that aspect of the Confederacy.
Absolutely.
That, how can you have a union without the consent of the parties? Otherwise, it's just by bayonet, and that's no union.
The opening had the lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia was there, and some say that that's why Rawls would not have a Confederate flag flying outside, because they wanted to make sure that the political bigwigs, they were hoping to get Governor McDonald, the one that crawfished and got craven on Confederate Heritage Month a couple of years ago. He didn't show up. Apparently the lieutenant governor did and gave a speech. They had Lee and Grant reenactors shaking hands, and Grant was apparently...
was he drunk?
Well, he had his United States colored troops come and help him.
Did he?
March
they were there at Appomattox?
They were there at Appomattox. So I'm told.
Historically?
Historically. Well, I would guess that that's the type of historicity that Waite Rawls is wanting for his new museum, and so bring people that
should have been.
That's right. Bring people that weren't there, and don't put up a flag that was there. So
new history.
That's right. So anyway, I think that the flaggers are a fairly recent phenomenon. They've been outside the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, Pelham Chapel, which was the old Robert E. Lee campus for the Confederate Veterans Home, and the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts will not allow the Confederate flag to fly from the chapel where Confederate veterans met for years and held church services and burial services, and so they've been out there every day.
And so that property was, how did that pass?
I think that the veterans passed it to the state, which is always a mistake. Giving anything to the state.
Here's an object lesson: don't give it to the state.
And then the state of Virginia gave it to this museum.
Right.
So, and they had been leasing the chapel to the Robert E. Lee camp, Sons of Confederate Veterans, but forbid them to fly the Confederate flag outside the chapel. So, there you go.
Well, this looks like the Virginia Flaggers are moving farther and farther afield.
And we need to think of ways to support them. I mean, obviously, flagging is something that we need to encourage and support. There need to be more people to do it. But generally, in and of itself, flagging probably is not going to turn the trick over there in Richmond and put the flag back. There needs to be other efforts. And we need to be thinking about what can we do to support the flaggers or to ramp up the dialogue with the flaggers in the background.
Forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So the flaggers are doing a great work, and more need to support them. And I hope if you're in the Virginia area that you consider helping them. But we also need to think about what else can we do to put pressure on the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts.
Well, one thing that helps is when a lawsuit's filed, and then you also have a continuing presence that keeps that in the people's mind. They remember what's going on. They don't. That's not allowed to fade into the background when you have flaggers out there every day.
Right.
Just like I understand that there was a suit filed in this state, in North Carolina.
Yes, in Reidsville.
And
it's a really good effort. The North Carolina division is to be commended, and Tim White, who's done a lot of work on this, and an attorney located there by the name of Peter Ledford. The Historic Preservation Action Committee and the North Carolina Division Sons of Confederate Veterans have filed a lawsuit against the city of Reidsville, North Carolina, the North Carolina Department of Transportation, the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources, and the United Daughters of the Confederacy.
That's astonishing.
Somewhat unprecedented to sue the UDC.
It is, and it's a shame that it has to come to that, but I think that it's warranted in this case.
Well, this is a case where a truck driver supposedly fell asleep and took a circuitous route and knocked over a 100-year-old Confederate monument in the city of Reidsville, North Carolina. The city of Reidsville has refused to put it back up. The North Carolina Division, United Daughters of the Confederacy, claim that it's their property, even though it's very clear that they gave that monument to the city of Reidsville in 1911. But everybody's pretending that the UDC still owns it. So they could get rid of it. And the UDC wants to move it and put it in a cemetery where it'll never be seen, as opposed to the very visible traffic circle where it's been for 100 years. And with help of the SLRC, North Carolina Division Judge Advocate Tim Wyatt came up with some pretty startling evidence that the UDC did not own the monument, that it really belongs to the state of North Carolina. And for them to move the monument, they have to go through the North Carolina Historical Commission. It has to go through them by law. And so no one wants to follow the law. The Department of Motor Vehicles basically said they had no standing to sue, which means they do not have the right to bring a lawsuit because they're not the proper party. Well, the SLRC provided the research to the North Carolina Division Judge Advocate that we absolutely have standing, and standing is a very important issue here. And so they'll be challenging all that in a North Carolina Superior Court. This is a very important case because if the state gets away with this with their apparent ally, the United Daughters of the Confederacy in North Carolina, this could happen all over the state. It's just going to be...
No monument will be safe then, because all it'll take is somebody knocking one over for them to have an excuse to get rid of that one. There's Confederate statues of monuments to our heroes dotting the whole countryside, and every courthouse has one just about in the South, or should.
Well, and now, it just right across the border in Charlottesville, they have a Greek city councilwoman who's bringing up the question, are all these Confederate monuments in the city of Charlottesville relevant? And so it's a ripple effect, and every county bureaucrat against Confederate heritage that wants to remove the statues will be watching this case.
Well, let me tell this Greek woman, as soon as she goes and knocks down the Parthenon in Greece, then we'll talk about knocking down Confederate statues.
Absolutely. So these people don't get it, and the North Carolina Division, the old North Carolina Division, is filed a lawsuit. We wish them well. The SLRC will do everything in its power to assist this lawsuit, and that's another reason that if you are watching this broadcast, you need to become a member. The Heritage Defense monies available for lawsuits like this are always slim, and for us to come in, we generally can't operate on no budget and on air. And if the North Carolina Division needs to get its resources, it's mostly going to have to pay the attorneys that they've hired to push this forward, and it's very expensive. We need to be able to help, and the way you can help us help them is to become a member. Send in your member for either your individual is $35, camp membership is $200. If you want to send us $75, you get an hour of free legal, historical, or genealogical research, plus your PIN, plus your membership certificate. So you really need to join the SLRC. We are relevant to every single Confederate issue that's going on today. There's not one going on that we don't know about, that don't have some insight on, or that we've not been asked to help in some way. If not,
that's really
carry the case.
We have one one more thing.
Yes, the Hardwick case, we filed the notice of appeal today.
Okay.
And that case will be argued in Jefferson Davis's law office.
Oh, yeah, we've been there before.
That's right. In the old Confederate Treasury building, right near Jefferson Davis's office is where we'll be arguing that case. We filed the notice of appeal today. It's an important case. There's a lot at stake. There was no disruption caused by this young lady. None. There's not any significant racial problems in this school to justify banning the flag. The school's taken the position, though, that any racial incident, if I call you a Jap, or call Nathaniel the cameraman across there, a spick, that is a racial incident enough to ban the Confederate flag in any school in the South. That's what they're pushing. It's happened in a couple other circuits where the judges are supinely agreeing that, you know, if little Pedro gets a little scratch on his fingernail, that's a racial incident and you can ban the Confederate flag. Even if there is absolutely no evidence that the Confederate flag had any part of this minor or major disruption.
No nexus.
No nexus.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very important issue that we've got to fight. What's even more deadly is that the South Carolina Association of School Superintendents and the national of that organization have filed a friend of the court brief asking the judges, look, you need to just abandon your jurisdiction over these cases.
They just want to become the tyrant ruler of the school system.
We know this issue so much better than the courts, and just on the Confederate flag issue, we're asking the courts to abandon their authority over and jurisdiction over these cases and let school superintendents handle it because they know it so much better.
I hope the Fourth Circuit can see through this charade, this power grab by these stupid people.
It's pretty brazen. It's pretty brazen and dangerous.
Historically, we've done well in the Fourth Circuit.
We have.
Say your prayers for us.
So become a member and pray for us in the Hardwick case. We'll let you know because we want you to come sit in the galleries when we argue that case. We'll probably have the Virginia flaggers outside.
We need 100,000 of our closest personal friends to be there.
That's correct. So that's our report for today, Neil.
Okay, thank you.
See you next week.